There's a strange silence that settles over a room when you disappoint your family. It's not loud, it doesn't argue, it just withdraws. That was the silence I walked into the night I said no. We were sitting around my mother's dining table, the same one I'd done homework on as a kid, the same one where birthdays were celebrated and grudges quietly fermented. The smell of overcooked vegetables lingered in the air. My child sat beside me, swinging their legs under the chair, oblivious to the tension tightening around us like a noose. My sister cleared her throat first. "So, you've thought about it?" she asked, eyes flicking toward our parents. I had, every night, every hour, every time I watched my child sleep. "Yes," I said, and the answer's still no. That's when the silence changed. It hardened. My father leaned back, arms crossed. "You don't get to make decisions like this alone. We're family." That word, family, landed like a command, not a comfort. They wanted me to move back home, to help out, to rearrange my life so my mother wouldn't be lonely, my sister wouldn't be overwhelmed, my father wouldn't have to change anything about his routine. They framed it as responsibility, duty, tradition. What they didn't say out loud, but made painfully clear, was that my child would have to adapt. Smaller room, fewer opportunities, less stability, less attention. I looked down at my kid, their small fingers gripping a crayon they'd brought from home. I saw the future they were quietly building, one bedtime at a time. "I won't do that to them," I said. My mother's face fell, wounded and sharp all at once. "So you're choosing them over us?" The question hung there, waiting to shame me. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was heavier than they were ready to hear. I wasn't choosing between family, I was redefining what family meant. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what it would cost me. They didn't raise their voices after that. That would have been easier. Instead, they leaned into disappointment, the quiet, suffocating kind that makes you feel like a selfish child, even when you're a grown adult with a child of your own. My sister sighed, slow and deliberate. "You're being dramatic. Kids adapt. We all did." I almost laughed. Almost. Because we did adapt. To tension, to walking on eggshells, to pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. We adapted to emotional scarcity and called it resilience because no one ever taught us another word. "I adapted," I said carefully, "and I promised myself my child wouldn't have to." My father shook his head like I was naive. "You're acting like we're asking you to abandon them. We're offering support." Support. The word felt hollow. Support doesn't come with conditions. Support doesn't ask a child to shrink, so adults can stay comfortable. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling just enough to sound fragile. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" There it was, the debt, the invisible ledger I'd been carrying since childhood. I felt that old reflex rise up, the urge to apologize, to smooth things over, to sacrifice myself to restore peace. It was muscle memory, generational, practiced, but then my child tugged gently at my sleeve. "Can we go home soon?" they whispered, not because they were bored, because they felt it. That was the moment something inside me locked into place. I realized this wasn't just about a move, or a favor, or family expectations. This was about patterns, about whether I would hand my child the same emotional burden I'd spent years trying to put down. I stood up slowly, heart pounding hard enough to make my hands shake. "We're not discussing this anymore," I said. "I've made my decision." My mother's eyes filled with tears. My sister looked away. My father went stone-faced. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're walking away from your family?" I picked up my child's jacket, slipped it over their shoulders, and met his gaze. "No," I said quietly. "I'm standing up for mine." The silence that followed wasn't withdrawal this time. It was recognition. They just didn't like what they saw. The backlash didn't come all at once. It came in fragments, texts sent late at night, phone calls that went unanswered, messages carefully worded to sound concerned instead of controlling. Each one carried the same unspoken message. "You're hurting us. Fix this." My mother started with guilt disguised as worry. "I barely sleep anymore," she texted. "I just keep thinking about how far away you are." My sister escalated to logic. "Financially, this makes more sense. You're being stubborn for no reason." My father said nothing at all, which somehow felt louder than the rest. For a while, I questioned myself. Late nights crept in, where doubt sat heavy on my chest. I replayed every conversation, every accusation. I wondered if I really was selfish, if I'd miscalculated, if love was supposed to feel this much like punishment. But then morning would come. I'd make breakfast while my child hummed to themselves. I'd walk them to school, feel their hand fit naturally into mine. I'd watch them laugh freely, not cautiously, not quietly, just laugh. And I knew. The difference was subtle but undeniable. My child slept through the night now. The stomach aches that used to show up before family visits disappeared. Their shoulders weren't constantly tense. They asked fewer questions like, "Am I being bad?" and more like, "Can I show you something?" Peace was doing what years of therapy had struggled to do. Then came the final attempt. A family group message, long, polished, signed by all of them. It talked about unity, tradition, how family comes before personal feelings, how children benefit from being surrounded by extended family, how one day I'd regret choosing independence over loyalty. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding, because for the first time I wasn't reacting from fear. I typed slowly. "My child is calm, safe, thriving. I won't apologize for protecting that." I didn't argue. I didn't justify. I didn't explain. I muted the thread. That night, as I tucked my child into bed, they wrapped their arms around my neck and whispered, "I like our home." The words landed deeper than any accusation ever had. And in that moment, I understood something with absolute clarity. Breaking a cycle doesn't look brave from the outside. It just looks disobedient. It's been months now. The distance hasn't closed. If anything, it's clarified things. Family gatherings happen without us. News reaches me secondhand. Birthdays are acknowledged with short messages instead of phone calls. And strangely, the world didn't end. What ended was the constant tightness in my chest, the sense that I was failing someone every time I made a choice, the belief that love had to be earned through compliance. I used to think being a good child meant sacrificing myself. I know now that being a good parent means refusing to do that. My family still believes I chose wrong, that I broke an unspoken rule, that loyalty should have outweighed instinct. But when my child runs into my arms at the end of the day, when they speak freely without checking the room, when they trust me completely, I understand the truth they'll never admit. Someone had to be the first to say no. I didn't cut them off out of spite. I didn't walk away in anger. I stepped forward into responsibility. One day, my child might ask why we don't see certain relatives often, and when that day comes, I won't poison them with blame or bitterness. I'll tell them this instead, because my job was to keep you safe, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. If choosing my child cost me approval, access, and acceptance, then it was a fair price. Because cycles don't break themselves. They wait for someone brave enough to disappoint the people who started them. And this time, that someone was me.